Longlegs is the latest indie horror flick to take the world by storm, distributed by Neon, who have been quickly making a name for themselves in the same way that A24 did when they were first getting started. The movie has been blowing box office projections out of the water. Not only has this hunt for a serial killer been raking in the cash, it has also been receiving loads of praise from critics and audiences alike, scoring rave reviews almost completely across the board. However, with more people seeing it who might not have thought to at first, the more we are getting folks who are feeling a little more mixed, to even downright negative. Were they sold a lie? Did they get tricked by the social media hype train? Or maybe they're just being sticks in the mud. For me, I left the theater feeling much more mixed than I would have liked. I'm all for indie horror, or elevated horror, really just horror in general, and I can confirm that I absolutely bought into the social media hype machine. While there are elements I adored about this movie, there are some things I flat out did not like or did not agree with. And then we have the biggest category when it comes to my relationship with Longlegs, the stuff that I'm still just unsure of. Hello ladies and gentlemen and movie lovers of all kinds, and welcome back to the channel. As always, I am your host, Brett Murphy, and for today's video, I am going to be diving deep into Longlegs. Full spoilers and all, as I discuss my thoughts on the good, the bad, and the undecided of Longlegs. Before I hop into the actual video itself, I just wanted to let you all know that I have carefully curated playlists for every type of video I do, be it video essays like this one, ranking videos, top 10s, versus videos, and so much more. There is a playlist for all, so I encourage you to explore the channel, and I guarantee you'll find something you like. And if not, feel free to suggest what you would like to see. And so without further ado, let's hop right into things. So I think the best place to start is with what I liked. Always a good idea to put our best foot forward and start things on a positive note. The first thing is the movie's atmosphere, which may arguably be its strongest asset. Almost every single scene is dripping with tension. You're just waiting for the next thing to happen. I found myself lingering on every word, every new clue given, every new piece of the puzzle that fits. As you sit and watch, you are basically just stewing in the constant feeling of dread and fear as you analyze every single shot. The overall vibe just leaves you feeling uncomfortable for the entire runtime. There's this never-ending sense of uneasiness. It's something I think Perkins masterfully executed here. Right from the opening, the whole thing is as creepy and eerie as it gets. Speaking of the opening is up to bat next. And I am in no way, shape, or form exaggerating when I say this is one of the best horror movie openings in a long time. Tense, creepy, atmospheric, and effective in such a short amount of time. It has what may be my favorite smash to title card moments ever. I genuinely jumped out of my skin and immediately felt so uneasy. I shit you not when I say I felt a chill run down my spine and goosebumps cover my skin. I think afterwards I literally uttered, "Oh, okay, here we go." The next element I was a fan of was the central mystery / investigation. I found the mystery and investigative side of this to be rather intriguing. No, not on the same level as something like Seven, Silence of the Lambs, Zodiac, or anything like that, but the FBI procedural aspects were well done. I love movies like this, where you are trying to decipher these messages, track down clues, discover the motive, analyze the crimes. It's just stuff I personally enjoy. I don't think they dove into it quite as much as they could have, nor was it as well executed as it could have been, but director Oz Perkins has since said in interviews that the serial killer procedural stuff, this hunt for a madman, is not the point of the movie. Instead, it's more so a magic trick, an act of sleight of hand making us think one thing when it's really another. I think that's very apparent by the way things pan out by the end, but while we were in it, and it did first feel like the focus, I liked it. Next is that I think, as well as pretty much everyone else, that Nicolas Cage was brilliant here. One of his best performances yet. The character, in terms of how he was written, I'll dive back into later, but Cage's performance is undeniably brilliant. He basically acts like the meme that everyone makes him out to be, only in the most unhinged, deranged, and manic way possible, and it works wonders. I think in any other film, people would just think like, oh, it's Nick Cage doing Nick Cage things again, but here, paired with the cinematography, score, color palette, and so on, it's perfect. I actually really preferred when they showed less of him too. When we were only getting brief glimpses, I found it so unsettling. When the full reveal happens, I was a little underwhelmed, but the aura of the character, thanks to Cage's portrayal, was truly haunting. The supporting cast aren't getting enough flowers either, if you ask me personally. Everyone has been talking about Nick Cage, like I just did, and Micah Monroe, but very few people have been mentioning Blair Underwood, Alicia Witt, or Kiernan Shipka. Yes, they have been mentioned in some circles, of course. Some people have made this movie their whole personality. There are some die-hard movie fans like myself who write reviews, make videos, and so on, and they have been mentioning them, but most general theater goers haven't said much about them at all. Underwood is my favorite though, as he brought a very natural bravado or gravitas to the movie and some much needed groundedness. I appreciated Witt's character more after all was revealed, and Shipka had just one scene, but I have been quoting that one scene endlessly since I saw this movie. You dirtsy flirtsy angel bitch. Good foreshadowing and cleverly placed clues can be the difference between making or breaking a movie. Be too heavy-handed, spoon-feed the audience, or don't do any of that stuff at all can ruin everything. Longlegs does not have this issue. In fact, it features some of my favorite foreshadowing since Ty West's 2022 feature, X. This is a movie that begs to be seen multiple times and definitely benefits from repeat viewings. Even if you just think back to some key moments or vague lines, you'll quickly begin to connect the dots and the light bulb in your head will shine bright. There is a ton of expertly crafted foreshadowing throughout the whole movie, right from the opening scene. Plenty of hints are scattered about too, some of them in quick flashes, some seem like throwaway lines, some in objects or things in the background. It's all there and superbly executed. And on the technical side of things, they killed it. Like, absolutely crushed it, I mean. From the way every single shot in the movie is framed, where we never truly know where we should be looking or focusing our attention, to the clever use of sound, the switching of aspect ratios, the hiding of Cage's character, the flashbacks, the score composed by Zilgi, I'm not really sure how to pronounce that, but all of it is magnificent. Really, from a technical perspective, I have no gripes at all. Not one. And the marketing team here deserves a raise or two, maybe even more, like a raise and 3 weeks paid vacation. The marketing is the primary reason for this movie's success. Between the promotional art like the posters, the mysterious trailers, and the social media marketing strategy where they posted cryptic teasers, riddles, and little scavenger hunts for people to take on. They had people hooked long before the movie even hit theaters. This is exactly why Longlegs scored Neon's biggest opening weekend yet and became their third highest grossing movie in only 3 days. Okay, now let's change gears for a few minutes while I discuss the things I did not like about Longlegs. The stuff I've thought about, I've mulled over, and I have decided that they just didn't sit right with me, but thankfully there's only 2 here. It's been a little over a week since I saw this movie, so I've had plenty of time to think. First, and it's a biggie, is the big reveal, and the ending overall seems to be, for the most part, one of the only things that folks on either side, those that love the movie and those that don't, can all agree on. The ending was lackluster, disappointing, dissatisfying, whatever word you want to use. No, I don't think it ruins the movie by any stretch of the imagination, but all of that build-up, all of the clues, all of it feels like it amounts to nothing. At least nothing that's really all that special. I mean, it's fine, don't get me wrong, I didn't hate it or anything, but for a movie that did so much right for the vast majority of its runtime, it seems to me that they stumbled mere feet from the finish line. A lot of people saw the first twist that Lee's mother was the accomplice coming. Lots of folks began to suspect how the dolls factored in, where the occult elements came from, the basement when Lee was getting her mom food during her visit, the little girl in the opening being Lee. So much of it didn't come as a big surprise to anyone. And when things finally went down at the Carter's household, it's understandable that a lot of folks were left feeling a little bit deflated. For instance, just to back me up a bit, I'll pull from a few reviews on Letterboxd that will help me illustrate my point. Some of these are from mutuals, some of these are from podcasts, and so on. Lucas Colvin, a mutual, said the third act felt rushed and unsatisfactory, which is a shame because there's some very interesting elements here that could have been something really special. One of the members of the Raiders of the Lost podcast said, ultimately, the dialogue, narrative plot holes, and a lack of brutal imagery kept the film from soaring to the levels of horror I was hoping for. The film also relied on a massive amount of consistent exposition and rolled into a kind of underwhelming third act. Brian Ray says, the third act really sinks what would be an all-timer serial killer horror movie. The twist is brutally obvious and quite disappointing. Mike Webb said, however, its thin storytelling and twists were foreseeably deplorable and over-explained, which prevented the last 20 minutes from being great. Reviewer Jake says, after Cage's few key scenes, the movie follows the predictable motions of your average Blumhouse vehicle. Spooky doll, mommy issues, possession, and never recaptures its early dread. It goes so far toward bad horror trends that it explains, extensively, the machinations of its simple plot right before the predictable finale. Another review, from Silent Dawn, said, Perkins's meticulous sense of form is a clear idea in theory for a narrative about generational evil and parental tension, but I still felt bummed and deflated by the disappointing final third. The last example I'll use comes from Christian Fink, who says, I think it's a shame that the movie wasn't able to maintain the strengths of the beginning for longer. The more the movie moves toward the solution of the puzzle, the more obvious the script's considerable weaknesses become. The last third of the movie is even really bad in my eyes. Here, only tropes are served and a complex but completely illogical and stupid resolution is sought. So, you see, I'm not completely alone on this one. Yeah, there are definitely people out there who liked the ending, maybe even loved it, or weren't that bothered by it. But for me, I wasn't a fan and left the theater thinking, that was it? I even recapped everything that was revealed and happened at the end with my brother who I saw it with to make sure I wasn't going crazy, and he was right there with me like, yeah, we got it all, and that really was it. And the only other thing I didn't like was how much this movie's popularity and the general consensus seemed cemented before the movie ever really even came out. The fan-led hype train, which some of the marketing leaned into, understandably so, because that's just smart marketing. They let early reviews and reactions lead the way and snowball into something much bigger. The marketing team isn't who I have a problem with, though. It's the people who got to see it early and acted like it was the best thing since sliced bread. The second coming of The Silence of the Lambs, the scariest movie ever made. I'm talking about the social media, capital letter laden, buzzword filled reviews that were basically designed with the sole purpose of being used as pull quotes for later trailers and online clout. Seriously, the scariest movie ever made, the best horror movie of the decade, this generation's Silence of the Lambs, original horror is back? Like, what? No, I completely disagree with all of those. It is a well-made movie, it's definitely creepy, has a truly top-notch atmosphere, great tension building, and so on. All the good stuff I already mentioned, but it is far from any of those things. I mean, don't get me wrong here, I am all for personal opinions, art is subjective, and so on. If you think or feel these things, I'm not saying you're wrong, but that's just your opinion, and this is mine. So don't go around talking shit about how I, or others like me, feel if you can't handle it coming back your way. It's the people that say things like, you just didn't get it, or people don't understand it, or they think that by them saying it's the best horror movie of the decade, that it makes it an unequivocal, undeniable, certifiable fact. Which it doesn't. So really, it's not so much a gripe with the movie itself, it's the rabid fan base online that's attacking people, building the movie up to be something I truly think it's not, people who are just leaning into the hype for clout or recognition, and although I think it's smart that the marketing team has really leaned on it, that kind of sucks to me because they're just sort of encouraging that kind of behavior. I mean, I have seen it get way worse ever since the newer trailers started coming out with those pull quotes from Twitter, and the marketing team has started replying to things on social media, sharing stuff on platforms, liking people's reviews, and so on. But now for the real star of the show, the biggest bull in this here rodeo, the main purpose of why we are here today. The stuff I am still unsure of, the things I am undecided on, and everything that has left me feeling conflicted about this movie. The first thing I am still unsure of, and this one is definitely going to get me in trouble, I mean, I can literally already feel the waves of hatred and disappointment from this. And that's Micah Monroe's performance. Yeah, I didn't think it was anything special. Some people are saying she gives a career high performance, some people calling the performance commanding or captivating or phenomenal, some even calling it legitimately Oscar-worthy, and I just simply don't see it. I found her character to be really uninteresting, and she mumbles through all of her lines in such a low, monotone voice with long pauses and often few words. There are some key things where I agree with some of those claims. Some scenes where she takes over and showcases her range, but more often than not, I was left scratching my head like, am I watching the wrong movie here? The explanations for the reasons why she is the way she is, like her mother being such an oddball, the influence of the doll, childhood trauma, memory suppression, and so on. Yeah, I get it. But something that not everyone gets or is willing to accept is that just because something makes sense or is explained well, doesn't make it good. Like, I can totally get why the character is the way she is. It really does make total perfect sense. But I still found her to mostly be a boring-ass, lifeless character with a few really good moments. Love her as an actress, I think she's phenomenal in something like It Follows, and most other things she's in. But this just wasn't it for me, and I can't for the life of me see where all of this praise is coming from. Now, the unraveling of this big mystery is my next point. Why is Longlegs doing this? What is the significance of the birthdays? What do the symbols on the notes mean? What is up with these dolls? How can Longlegs murder the families without actually being there? So many questions posed so early on when the movie is being set up as an FBI procedural akin to Seven. Yet, as we now know, that was all smoke and mirrors, a sleight of hand trick, but that doesn't change the fact that a lot of this is the driving force of the movie for a good chunk of the runtime. So why am I still so mixed on the way things panned out on this front? Well, it's pretty plain and simple. In my eyes, it all gets solved super easily and gets brushed aside far too quickly. Yes, once again, I completely understand that a lot of this is explained by the end of the movie. Lee has some minor psychic ability, she has suppressed memories of Longlegs that are now coming back up, she has a connection with Longlegs, and probably Satan in some capacity due to the doll, and so on. Again, one of those instances where just because it makes sense or it fits does not automatically mean it's good or well executed, and definitely doesn't mean that I have to like it. So I'm a little mixed on it. I like the build-up, didn't really like the payoff. The next point of discussion is the dolls. I don't hate the dolls. I don't love them. I think the design is adequately creepy, right in line with the rest of the movie. I didn't dislike the explanations for them either. Like, yeah, cool, the dolls possess the people or put a spell on them or whatever, which makes the father kill them all, but they don't go too far beyond that. I also agree that yes, not everything needs to be explained, but when you're going to introduce something a little later in your movie and hang basically everything up on that, I wouldn't have minded a bit more. Why was Lee's different? What happens to Ruby now? Why was Carrie Ann practically catatonic for all those years? How long has Longlegs been doing this for? How does he do this? Is it the devil/Satan that possesses them? So many questions with little to no explanation, where I feel like they definitely needed at least a little bit more. And the horror elements of the movie, if you can call them that. Aside from its undeniable creepiness and knack for putting its audience into a constant state of paranoia, there's nothing even remotely scary about this movie. Unsettling? Sure. Disturbing? Maybe a little, yeah. Eerie? Most definitely. Scary? No. It never showed enough of its crime scenes to be scary. Longlegs, for me at least, lost his scare factor when we got the full face reveal and all that stuff. The jump scares were fine, but honestly, this movie just wasn't one that stuck with me. A scary movie these days isn't just the jump scares like some people think, and it actually needs to rattle me. I need to be thinking about it long after or struggling to get it out of my head. It needs to make me afraid of the dark for a bit or nervous to look in the mirror. Longlegs does absolutely none of this, at least not for me. So while I think the movie nails the atmosphere and everything, as I've been saying on repeat, putting the generic pull quote, scariest movie of the decade, on your poster feels like a bold-faced lie, false advertising, whatever. This next one is tough because everybody is going to feel differently. We don't all think the same, we don't all feel the same, we don't all believe the same, that's just life. Going back to the movie's final act, I didn't love the way things panned out. Still, I heard people out. I watched YouTube videos, read articles, read reviews, have had conversations, all with people that liked the movie more than me and even less than me. Most people have different explanations for different things in this movie, and a wide variety of interpretations. Why did Lee say that one thing in that one scene? Why were we seeing that in the background? And what did Longlegs mean by that? Why did her mother do this? Why was Lee affected differently by the dolls? So on and so forth. The movie leaves us with unanswered questions and plenty left open to interpretation, and that is not a bad thing. In fact, I think that's a great thing, and I would prefer more movies do it this way instead of spoon-feeding us everything or cramming it down our throats with a massive exposition dump. Some do it better than others, some are more satisfying than others, that's just the way movies work. But the thing is, I haven't really loved or connected with, or in many cases even agreed with, many of these explanations or rationales. Some people's arguments have been really compelling. Some people have had a lot of evidence to support them, some are just great speakers and are very persuasive, and some are definitely just talking out of their asses, and some are trying so desperately to make it something that it's not. Whether they want to be different or try to sound smarter than they are, or they just like to throw out the good old, "you just didn't get it," argument before proceeding to tell the biggest bit of bullshit I've ever heard. I, of course, like everyone else, have my own interpretations, and some of it director Oz Perkins has said outright himself. Really, the whole movie is about the secrets our parents keep. The things they tell us, the things they choose not to, the way they frame some of the stuff they do tell us, the sacrifices they make for us, and what it costs them. On the flip side, from Lee's perspective, the perspective that Oz was writing from, that of the child in this scenario, Longlegs is about exploring that feeling where a parent hasn't told you everything, or is withholding things because they believe they are protecting you, and then questioning, is that fair? Is that healthy? Are they really protecting us? Did they go about it the right way? How do we process that? So that stuff is pretty clear, but it feels like waves upon waves of people on the internet are taking the tiniest moments from the movie and blowing them way out of proportion, literally making a mountain out of a molehill. And now, finally, the last point I want to touch on are this movie's influences. Yes, influences, indeed, influences aplenty. Silence of the Lambs, Seven, Zodiac, maybe a few others spliced in here and there, but those are the big three, I would say. All marginally better movies, I might add, but that's just not the point here. Where I'm still unsure is if I like how much it leans into these influences or not. Now I know what you might be thinking, no, not every serial killer movie where they leave notes or codes to decipher makes it a Zodiac ripoff. No, just because the killer is meticulous and their methods or motives align with something specific like birthdays or the 7 deadly sins, for instance, doesn't make it a 7 ripoff. And just because the movie has a female FBI agent doesn't mean it's ripping off Silence of the Lambs. But everybody and their grandmother knows these movies were the blueprint for this movie. Even Oz Perkins himself has referenced them in interviews. My thing is that, on the one hand, I love these movies, and movies like them. On the other hand, does it lean into these influences a little too much? Does it play it a little too close? Does it do enough to differentiate itself? Questions I still can't answer. And that, folks, is all I have to say about that. Some of this you may agree with, some you may not. Some you might call hot takes. Some you might call it talking out of my own ass. Maybe you loved Longlegs, maybe you hated it, or maybe you're just like me and you're still really not quite sure what to think. But that's where I currently am. Maybe a couple of more rewatches will sway me one way or the other, but for now, here we are.
Oh, there she is.
So that is all for today's video, folks. Be sure to let me know down in the comments below if you agree or disagree with my take on this particular topic. While you're at it, don't forget to let me know if you've seen Longlegs. What do you think? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Are you like me and you're stuck somewhere in the middle? Did you agree with the things I liked, didn't like? Are you unsure about the things I'm unsure about too? Comment below and let me know. As a reminder, this is the revamped BAM2 Movies, and it's your one-stop for everything movies. Be it video essays like this one, ranking videos, top 10s, versus videos, tier list videos, I have it all and so much more, along with your daily nerdy news wrap-ups. So be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and ring that little bell icon so you don't miss a thing. As always, folks, I thank you all so very much for watching. Stay happy, healthy, and safe out there. From myself and the rest of the BAMTube team, thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time, and that's a wrap.